Hi there, I'm Nafisa and this is Across the Balkans. On this episode, we look at the growing humanitarian crisis at Bosnia and Herzegovina's border with the European Union. Hundreds of asylum seekers are stranded and struggling to find shelter in the country's northwest, where temperatures are freezing. Now, most are hoping to find refuge in Croatia, but the EU is keeping its borders shut. According to the International Organization for Migration, there are nearly 9,000 migrants in Bosnia right now, and only a fraction of them have access to accommodation. The situation was made much worse after a fire destroyed a camp in December last year. Well, Semir Sejfovic went to Bihac to see the situation for himself.
No water, no toilet, no shower, no food.
Bosna i Hercegovina je ilegalni poligon za ilegalne migracije prema Europskoj uniji.
In fondo da qui lo intravediamo il confine, cosa non dobbiamo sentire?
Šta me najviše šokira u ovom svemu, da većina ovih organizacija gledaju ove ljude kao robu i kao posao. Mi moramo gledati sve ljude kao ljude. Prvo, psihološku pomoć, jer oni su isprepadani, izudrani, ne žele uopšte da prime ni medicinsku pomoć, ni hranu. 10 godina dijete staro je u željezari, bez pratnje roditelja i rodbine. Gdje je Save the Children? Gdje je IOM?
Zlatan Kovacevic has a clear mission to help refugees and migrants who are stranded in northwest Bosnia while the EU continues to keep its border closed. His motivation is personal. 30 years ago he was wounded in the Bosnian War and later fled to Europe as a refugee.
Znam samo da fali kampova, fali minimalnih osnovnih životnih uslova, znači krevet i krov nad glavom. Od 7 kampova u BiH, 5 je kod nas. Pogledaj kakvo je stanje tih kampova, koliki je kapacitet, koliko je ljudi unutra i koliko je ljudi u blizini kampa. Zašto se iznajmljuju šatori, zašto se iznajmljuju neka vozila? Gdje su kampovi?
Bosnia has become a bottleneck for asylum seekers trying to make it to the EU, and there are fears of a brewing crisis. On December 23rd, last year, a fire gutted the Lipa refugee camp in Bihac, a small town close to the Croatian border. Since then, the tents have been erected by the Bosnian military, but many of the refugees say there are no proper facilities. I'm on my way to meet a young man who is squatting in an abandoned retirement home, like hundreds of other migrants. He's living in an unofficial camp without access to electricity. The 17-year-old Said has tried to reach Croatia 4 times. He dreams of getting a job in Europe so that his siblings can have a shot at a better life.
पाकिस्तान में मुझे बहुत बड़ा मसला था, हमने स्कूल के लिए भी जाता था, फिर हमने मैट्रिक किया था, उधर हमारा गरीबी था इसलिए इधर आया था। फिर मेरा ख्वाहिश है कि मैं अपने छोटे भाई पर तालीम करूँ इसलिए इधर आया था। भाई इधर तो बहुत ज़्यादा मसला है, इधर सब बंदों के ऊपर खारिश भी, इधर ज़िंदगी गुजारना बहुत मुश्किल है, हम गंदा पानी भी पीते हैं, इधर खाने पानी का कोई चीज़ भी नहीं है, इधर से भी बहुत दूर है, हम गेम के लिए जाते हैं, इंशाल्लाह 4-5 दिन बाद मैं फिर जाऊंगा गेम पे, इसलिए हम इधर रहते हैं।
What Said is talking about is no teenage game. It's a term coined by migrants to describe the dangerous journey of crossing into Croatia. Because if you fail, it's game over and you have to start all over again.
ما خو د اولین گیم که میرفتم در سرک اول ما دیپورت شدم، پس که بعد گیم دوم میرفتم در سرک 70 گیر کرد، بس اوجم یک چیز کرد، تلفن‌ها را گرفت، میده کرد، تلاشی ملاشی کرد، اوجا نزد. بعد که در بادر میاره در بوسنیا بیهاچ که میایه نه اوجا که بادر است، بادر هم اوجا میزنه، جاکت میکردش میگیره، هر چیز بیک میگیش میسوزانه، لغت میکنه، میزنه در چوپا، امی تو در بوسنیا دیپورت میکنه. امی 4 دفعه امی تو کده، ما 4 دفعه رفتیم امی تو کده با.
The Croatian government denies the allegations, but many here have the same story. They flee conflict, persecution, or poverty in Syria, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, try to enter the EU via Croatia, and end up being illegally pushed back, often violently, into Bosnia.
I don't want to now to point the fingers. We have the dialogue with the member states, but pushbacks are simply something which is totally unacceptable in Europe. That's violation of number of rights, and if it's even accompanied with the violence, that's really unacceptable.
Migrants here aren't the only ones being pushed back by Croatia's border police. Last week, 4 Italian members of the Italian parliament were barred from entering an area on the border with Bosnia.
L'Europa di umanità, ma di quale umanità stiamo parlando? Se degli eurodeputati non possono nemmeno vedere che cosa succede in suolo europeo.
Noi insisteremo e andremo al confine perché è un nostro diritto.
È un dovere.
È anche un nostro dovere. È un nostro dovere. Noi abbiamo un dovere, dobbiamo rendere conto di quello che succede all'interno del nostro territorio.
Migrants in the town of Bihac in Bosnia and Herzegovina tell me they are stuck in limbo. They're being illegally pushed back by the Croatian police, and they feel like the EU has abandoned them. Hundreds of migrants are living in woods and streets and urgently need proper shelter. According to the UN, more than 79 million people were forcibly displaced worldwide in 2019, with the prediction of another 1 billion by 2050. I'm taken to another unofficial camp in a rundown industrial complex. Here, Dr. Jasmin Durakovic and his team provide basic healthcare services.
Ljudi žive na otvorenom, jaki mini sudari. Međutim, bilo je i smrtnih slučajeva od ubodnih rana, kao što su pneumotoraks, ljudi ne mogu disati, probiju plućnu maramicu. Naravno, ima mnogo vidljivih povreda kod pushbacka, na primjer, uvijek su svi bosi. Zimi su smrzotine na prstima, ogromni žuljevi, razbijene usne, polomljeni zubi, izrazite modrice tokom, hajmo reći, ti bježanja, padovi, uganuća i sve te povrede mogu upućivati na pushbackove.
Ono što je pokazala 2020. jeste da je na teritoriju Unsko-Sanskog kantona preko 7200 migranata vraćeno iz Evropske unije na teritoriju Unsko-Sanskog kantona.
The governor of the Bihac region, Mustafa Ruznic, says his hands are tied. For him, the EU is the only power able to solve the crisis, and until they do so, the people and the region of Bihac are just collateral damage.
Evropska ih unija ne želi, znači ne želi ih i odvraća ih, to vidimo svaki dan kada je u pitanju Republika Hrvatska, a onda jasno postavljamo pitanje, je Bosna i Hercegovina ilegalni poligon za ilegalne migracije prema Evropskoj uniji?
For something called the game, there seems to be no real winners. Human Rights Watch has called on the European Commission to put Zagreb on notice for breaching EU asylum laws. The group is advocating that border funding be tied to human rights compliance. Until then, those searching for a better life in Europe have little choice other than to continue playing the game that so many are tired of and yet cannot quit. Semir Sejfovic, TRT World, Bihac.
My guest today is the IOM Chief of Mission in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Laura Lungarotti, and she joins us now from Sarajevo. Laura, thank you for joining us on Across the Balkans. Now, why was it so complicated to accommodate these people that are stuck at the border with the EU, at least until spring? And what is the IOM doing at this moment to help them?
So basically, IOM is supporting the Bosnia-Herzegovina state authority in managing accommodation centers across two main cantons, the canton Unasana, close to the Croatian border, and the canton Sarajevo. So we are supporting and making sure people get the critical humanitarian assistance needed, and also those who are living outside those transit centers get food, non-food items, clothes, and medical support. Of course, the situation is still difficult for those who are living outside the transit centers, and for a group of 900 people who are currently on a place called the Lipa, which has been set up as a temporary accommodation center by the authorities. You could see it, in fact, right now, has been set up by the army, and we as IOM are supporting the authorities in making sure that those people, those 900 migrants, are receiving the needed humanitarian assistance.
Right, and Laura, just a couple of months ago, the IOM pulled out of the camp of Lipa in protest, blaming the local authorities for the crisis. And even some EU officials in Sarajevo described the crisis as a man-made, as an artificial crisis. In your opinion, what are the main reasons for the humanitarian situation in Bosnia that's escalating at the moment?
At the end of December, there's been, of course, a back and forth in between the local authorities, the state authorities, and the international organization, including IOM and the EU, in quickly finding a solution for this temporary site of Lipa, making sure that water and electricity was in there. And when this wasn't coming forward, and given the standards were not up to the level we wanted, IOM, with the support of the other international organization, pulled out. But we didn't blame anyone, in the sense that here is not a game of blaming each other. We need to find common solution. And immediately after, that strong gesture managed to push the Council of Ministers of involving the army and making sure that a makeshift tent camp, army camp could be built. And we are now accommodating, mostly the government, of course, is in charge with our support, accommodating more than 900 people in there.
Right, and now in the time of the pandemic, obviously the EU will keep its borders closed. New problems arise. Also, I've seen this new IOM report suggesting that migrants and refugees are struggling, and there's a growing social tension in Bosnia over refugees. Why are we seeing these strains between the host communities and the refugees currently stuck there?
Yes, there is a worrying sense of animosity from the local population towards the migrants and towards the humanitarian actors. This is worrying. We are trying to counter this narrative with more positive narrative, in the sense that on one side, migrants are human beings like us. They deserve their human rights to be met. And two, this migrant response has brought a lot of also economic opportunities for those areas in terms of employment of humanitarian workers, in terms of procurement of goods, from food to clothes, which have all contributed to the local economy. So we have to stress those positive factors to counter this narrative.
Laura Lungarotti, thanks so much for that. I appreciate your time for us here on TRT World.
Thank you for having me.
Bridges usually bring people together, but in the Balkans, things are never so simple. A bridge currently under construction is proving to be another source of tension between Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. And the project is either celebrated or condemned, depending on which side of the border you're on. Here's why.
This is the medieval city of Dubrovnik. Before the pandemic, it was on track to become Croatia's most popular tourist destination. But to drive here from the nation's capital, Zagreb, you have to go through another sovereign country, Bosnia and Herzegovina. This 9-kilometer strip of Bosnian coastline cuts Croatia in two and means the southern tip is not actually connected to the rest of the country. But the Peljesac bridge is set to change that. It will span 2.4 kilometers across the Bay of Mali Ston and join Kamarna with the Peljesac Peninsula. That will connect up all Croatian territory, which Croatia says will clear the way for the EU nation to finally join the visa-free Schengen area. But unfortunately for Bosnia and Herzegovina, the bridge will cross its only outlet to the Mediterranean Sea. Bosnian officials say the project threatens their access to international waters and thus violates the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea.
Mi nećemo ugroziti svoja prava, odnosno suvereno pravo naše zemlje, da kao pomorska zemlja ima I otvoreni izlaz na more.
Bosnia's government has never given formal consent to the project, but Croatia says it doesn't require Bosnia's approval.
Pelješki most je jednostavno unutarnje razvojno pitanje Republike Hrvatske, nikakve neprijateljske namjere, nikakve namjere zaustavljanja razvoja Neuma ili uplovljavanja u Neum tu ne postoje I nadam se da ćemo to do kraja raščistiti I da ćemo to staviti ad acta kao otvoreno pitanje.
Construction officially started in 2005. It's set to finally be completed by the end of this year. The long-delayed bridge needed to be both deeper and taller than originally planned, and as a result, the cost blew out to $630 million. The pace picked up after the European Commission agreed to pay for most of it, and after a Chinese firm won the rights to build it, in a tender process mired in controversy.
Najbolju ponudu imala China Road and Bridge Corporation, čime je suradnja između Hrvatske I Kine dobila jednu sasvim novu dimenziju.
It's the first Chinese state project paid for by European taxpayers and reflects Beijing's growing influence in the Balkans. Since the Peljesac Bridge was first proposed a quarter of a century ago, it's been one of Croatia's most contested projects. It's hard to see how that controversy will just become water under the bridge.
To get more on this issue, I'm joined by Yuksel, who has been following this story closely. He's a specialist on the ethnic and cultural geography of the Balkans. Yuksel, thank you for joining us on Across the Balkans. Listen, I've noticed that you've been very passionate about the Peljesac Bridge on Twitter. Who has a point here? I mean, both Croatia and Bosnia, they do have strong arguments when it comes to this long-standing dispute.
Hello. Thank you very much for the compliment. For Croatia and the European Union, this is a simple road project, but ignoring the maritime safety and sovereignty of the country, among them, that is Bosnia and Herzegovina. To be honest, now Croatia is usurping Bosnia's rights by building a bridge that will block Bosnia's only coast, which provides access to the open sea, and European Union finances it. This is not just a maritime problem. This is not just a transport issue. This is not just an issue about touristic road security or any kind of territorial continuity. This is a problem about sovereignty and its violation.
What can Bosnia do now? I mean, it says it will sue Croatia, but then there isn't consensus when it comes to its presidency. As you know, it's a complicated situation that's Bosnia in it. But what can the country do now? What's the solution?
This passage of the Bosnia and its access to international waters should be guaranteed within the Peace Implementation Committee, and most importantly, if it's built, this bridge will cut off sea supports to Bosnia from Turkey or any other neighboring countries, while blocking aid to civilians who need to be evacuated in any kind of war as it happened in the future.
Okay, thanks, Yuksel. I mean, stay where you are because we'll come back to you in just a moment. Now, much of the Balkans was under Ottoman rule until the early 20th century. Albania was one of the first countries in the region to proclaim its independence. And since then, Albania and the modern Turkish Republic have been strong partners. Now, the two nations are taking their relationship to a whole new level. Take a look.
longtime allies Albania and Turkey have signed a new agreement to upgrade their ties to the level of a strategic partnership.
Az önce yüksek düzeyli stratejik işbirliği konseyi kurulmasına ilişkin ortak siyasi bildiriyi imzaladık. Attığımız bu adım her alandaki işbirliğimizin daha da geliştirilmesine imkan tanıyacaktır.
Turkey and Albania have strengthened their cooperation since the end of the Cold War, signing a series of agreements on health, education, infrastructure, culture, and the economy, and that continues to this day.
Mundëm të konstatojmë shprehjen e një vullneti të fortë për të hapur një kapitull të ri në marrëdhëniet mes të dy vendeve, mes të dy shteteve, mes dy qeverive.
Turkey built more than 500 housing units in Albania following two earthquakes in September and November last year, and Ankara is also constructing a new hospital in Albania. The Turkish parliament speaker, who was on an official visit to Albania's capital Tirana last week, signalled that a Turkish consulate will be opened in the city of Vlorë. He also expressed that Turkey will not allow FETÖ to harm its relations with Albania, where FETÖ operates a huge network of schools, institutions and universities. Being NATO partners in the Western Balkans has contributed to stronger relations, and both countries have supported each other's bids to join the European Union. However, Albania also sees Greece as a valuable partner in its bid for EU accession. In October last year, Albania and Greece agreed to refer a maritime border dispute to the International Court of Justice. Athens is seeking to extend its territorial waters from 6 to 12 nautical miles, and that's a move that could impact a tense row with Turkey. Greek-Turkish relations have been strained as Athens has opposed Ankara sending its drill ships into the eastern Mediterranean for energy exploration. So, as Tirana walks a tightrope in its relations with Athens and Ankara, will Turkey's new strategic partnership with Albania tip the balance towards Turkey?
Okay, let's go back to Tirana, where Yuksel is following the latest developments in the two countries' relations. Yuksel, it looks like Albania will have to cautiously balance between Turkey, its strategic partner on one side, and Greece on the other, since its EU ambitious lead through Athens. How difficult will this be for Tirana, and what are the challenges it will face?
Albania is a tiny country in the Balkans, and Albanian problem with Greece, which is mostly concerned about the southern maritime borders, is a long issue which goes back to 10 years before. In fact, Turkey and Albania have a strict collaboration on this area, yet Turkey has a presence in Paşalimani. That's a bay, that's a really nice bay, which is suitable for any kind of naval base. So we have a base there, a little corps troop. It's like the liaison unit on the Turkish naval forces in Albania. It's a kind of technical support unit. An offer was made to transform this place into a Turkish base, and yet it is still on the table. And Albanians didn't do anything to convert that troop into a widespread and complicated military base. So if there is to be a strategic partnership, it may be a treaty that will transform the location of the union of the troop in Paşalimani Bay into a base.
Let's go back to Turkey-Albania relations. What are the historic links between the two countries? I mean, they have traditionally been friendly due to geographical factors and the existence of a large Albanian diaspora here in Turkey.
That is true, but more than this, this just can be a few sweet words about to explain the friendship level of two countries. Moreover, mutual interest of two countries comes first. Albania is a minor state, is a tiny state, as I said before, and Turkish-Albanian cooperation goes very before, and it was developed since the breakup of Albanian socialist regime in the early 90s, and now till today many Turkish investments took place in Albanian economy. Now the Turkey is the major investor in Albania. Over $6 billion existing Turkish investments are the spearhead of the Turkish interests in Albania.
Okay.
And Turkey is the country is the mediator country between Albania and Greece in many ways.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Yuksel Hosh, I do appreciate your time. He's in Tirana. He's been speaking to us. And I hope you'll come again soon on Across the Balkans, Yuksel. Thanks for watching this episode of Across the Balkans, the show dedicated to the people, places and stories of Southeastern Europe. Hope to see you next time.